Alright, y'all boys, we back with another video. So today we are going to be doing a showcase of a character that I probably should have did about a week ago. I just kind of kept laying it off. So the character that we're going to be talking about today is going to be Blue Miwa, right? I say blue because there's going to be other versions of Miwa, like the green one that we're going to be getting in the near future. Not too far off from now, right? Considering the pacing that Globe was going. But anyways, let's kind of talk about it. So in Phantom Parade, Miwa's quite the interesting character. The devs are like heavily focusing on the counter gimmick for Miwa, right? To make her a counter character, which kind of makes her unique and fun in her own way. But unfortunately for all Miwas, basically all their counters are really niche and oftentimes they're useless in most content. So I'll kind of give you a quick rundown on how counters work, because that's obviously the main purpose of her, right? So how counters work is that they only counter melee ranged physical attacks. So not only do you have to make sure that the enemy does physical attacks, they also have to be close ranged melee physical attacks. This essentially restricts the character's play in like 90% of the content. So you're only effectively being able to properly use the counters efficiently in about 5 to 10% of the game's content, which is not good for a character. That is literally terrible. That makes the character extremely niche and super situational. And in most of those situations, you have more variances or variables that also determine on whether you would use this character or the other character. So it's realistically not even 5 or 10% of those. It might be even less than that. It might be 2%. You know, surprisingly, has been strategies, right, in higher tower floors like 48 and 50, for example, where people did use her to cheese the quest. But yeah, I mean, realistically, it's just not plausible to use this character all that often, and it's very rare. Even the SR1 puts this one to shame, considering you can use this SR1 synergizes very well with the Todo, right? So how does Blue Miwa compare though? Well, Blue SSR Miwa is a weird case. They took essentially the SR Miwa and fixed some of the issues which the SR Miwa had, while also ruining other factors that also made the character good. So let's kind of talk about what her skills do in her kit, you know, like her passives. I'll give you the rundown of her more important skills of the character, so that way you can kind of understand how she functions properly. So her passive skill is going to introduce the, I guess you could say, new effect or kind of buff, which is going to be sword counts. And by utilizing her skills, she can gain counts which stack and then provide different buffs depending on how many counts she has. And of course, she can also generate 2 counts by critting and 1 count when she is in the counter status. Add up to 3 counts, she can decrease physical damage received. And then for the 6 counts, she can increase her break damage by 50%. And then when her counts reach 7, she increases her crit damage by 50%. Not only that, all of Miwa's skills increase in damage depending on how many counts she has. So it sounds good on paper, but there's a lot of things that, you know, go into, you know, factoring what's good and when you can use her in certain content. So from Blue SSR Miwa's auto skill, it's obvious that she leans towards more an offensive counter style by providing DPS on her counters and special, compared to the SR Miwa, who plays a defensive counter playstyle by evading damage with her counters. So yeah, again, you're going to be building sword counts, and these sword counts are going to give you extra additive stats and effects to properly use the character. But yeah, again, it's a very conditional effect to get, you know, decent damage. That's the biggest issue with the character for me. Now we have her skill 2. One more reason that she leans towards a more offensive counter style is mainly going to be her skill 2. SR Miwa's biggest issue was that she could only counter once per turn. This SSR Miwa can counter up to 3 times, I believe, 3 times per turn, making her an absolute menace within the right condition, because you're able to essentially tank the entire like group if there's like multiple mobs, where in areas like the SR Miwa, she can't really do that. However, in return, they nerfed her taunt. So this is also going to work against the character. Even though this is what made the SR Miwa good, this is also making the SSR Miwa bad. So it's like they gave what was good from SR Miwa and put it onto this character, and then what was bad, they just basically did vice versa for the character. It's just really weird. Anyways, SR Miwa has an AoE taunt which would last the full turn with no restrictions, while Blue Miwa's taunt is only single target and only attracts 1 attack for 1 turn, which essentially makes her counter useless if the enemy doesn't attack her. Even though she's able to counter multiple enemies, it's just like, okay, now You had the SR Miwa who's able to taunt the enemies and can, do it for the entire duration. So you'll be able to counter all of them, but she has like not enough counters. And then you have the SSR Miwa who has plenty of counters, but doesn't have enough taunt for all the counters. So yeah, again, so dumb. So this is going to be one of her biggest problems. SR Miwa might not be able to counter as much as she is consistent and reliable, but she can utilize Red Toto to further negate damage. So yeah. SR Blue Miwa gave up her reliability in return for damage and more RNG counters, which, let's be honest, her damage is absolute giga ass. So she basically got fucked. Realistically, even though she's supposed to be more offensive, if her damage sucks, it defeats the purpose of this character. Meanwhile, you still have the SR Miwa who's more focused towards being defensive. And I mean, she's not going to be there for damage anyways. So she's doing her job properly. Right, so unfortunate for this character. Now, skill 1 is a basic attack. Interestingly enough, it consumes sword counts to increase her crit hit rate when her count is 5 or more. Realistically, you don't want to consume your sword counts unless you're sure that you're going to be able to crit, because then you'll be able to get more sword counts when you do crit. Then you have your skill 3, which is a self buff, and then it provides 3 sword counts. Nothing too crazy to talk about. I mean, you can do this when you need it, and whenever you don't need a taunt or anything, that's fine. And then you have her special. Now, her special on paper looks really strong since she gets a natural 130% damage increase with her sword counts on almost a 1,200% multiplier. But her stats are somehow ass or something like that, just like SSR Rindo, where she doesn't hit as hard. So there's a little like something in there that's wrong that just isn't allowing her to hit her absolute peak. Could be the buffs. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, this character, I don't really have high hopes for this character. I played with this character on JP. I pulled for her on like literally the day 1 that she came out on JP. I wailed for her. She just wasn't it. She literally did not cook. She was practically unusable almost everywhere. But I mean, either way, we're still going to showcase her just because I believe nobody else on YouTube showcased her whatsoever, and for good reason. Right, so we're going to show you why she's absolute giga ass. So let's go to the teams and then we'll move into the showcase. All right, so we're here on the team. So this is going to be obviously the standard. You already know how the drill goes. We have a normal team and then we have a nuke team. Now, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do the nuke team, but I'm still going to show you the team just in case if I do decide to do it. But I know for sure I'm going to be doing the normal team. So you're going to probably be wondering what the hell is going on with this normal team. Why the fuck is Maki here? Maki's mainly here to obviously for the consistent crit increase, so that way Miwa is able to crit more and then get more sword counts from her passive, right? And then obviously we're going to have, adult time on her as well, which is of course going to increase the crit rate for your entire team for 2 turns. So this is also going to be an additive bonus on top of that. Then we're going to have, of course, Yuji, because Yuji is, being able to give nice ult and damage increase, basically the ult charge and all that. It's very nice, all good. And then we have Ichiji for, of course, buffing and then ult recharge, so that way we can get to our ult even quicker. We can fire that off rapidly. Because, I mean, yeah, she's not going to do crazy amount of damage, so we're definitely going to want to try to get as much ults as possible to do something, Now, in terms of memories, I mean, obviously the memory that we have, I already mentioned on Maki, this is for crits, and it's going to help boost the crits for her. Then we're going to have this on our Yuji. This memory is really good, underrated. This gives crit increase to yourself, but aside from that, when you land a crit, you will apply a 15% ultimate God's fill rate increase to all allies for 2 turns. This is, by the way, is really insane on Mai, because Mai, she has the follow-ups. So if you, of course, have 3 people who are behind her who are going to be attacking, you have 3 chances of getting those crits, which also boosts your ult gauge for your entire team. It's insane. It's very powerful on her. Miwa, obviously, she's going to be using the one that came with her. I mean, obviously. And then Ichiji is going to have Unity because his main purpose here is to be utility and a support. Now for the nuke team, this is going to be the standard. We always have Megami. Then we're going to have, of course, our, what's her name? Momo. And then we have Inumaki because he's kind of like a staple with blue DPSs or blue characters in general. And then we have our Miwa, who's our star of the show. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into, of course, showcasing the character in general in combat so you can see how it feels to play this character. All right, so we're here on chapter 12. I believe it's episode 9, right? So we're just going to get right into it and just start tackling the boss down. Nothing too crazy. So we're just going to use throwing kunai straight away, because throwing kunai is of course going to lower the crit resistance of the enemy, which means we will be able to of course be able to crit more. Then we're going to use the memory straight away on Yuji, because we're trying to get our ults as well. So we want to have him have the high crit rate whenever it's possible. Then we're going to use his skill 3, because it's going to be able to charge the ult on our team. Then for our Miwa, I believe we're just going to do skill 1. We're not going to do anything just yet. And then for our Ichiji, we're just going to use skill 2, right? Skill 2 and the memory, of course, right? Because Unity's going to start charging up our ults. And then we should be good to go. Okay, she got inflicted with darkness, which realistically isn't good, but I mean, it's not a big deal. Then we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do the taunt, you know, so that we can counter as well. And then the same thing for Ichiji once again. Skill 3, skill 1. We'll do skill 1 here. And then I guess we could just kind of reduce the amount of damage that we take for our entire team. Yeah, that should be fun. Alright, next up we are going to use skill 3 here. Skill 2 once again. This is going to debuff them. Then we'll use skill 2. This is going to taunt, and we'll get a counter as well. And then we'll skill 1 with Ichiji, because we don't have enough curse energy. Counter, as you can see. Very unfortunate. But that's what I'm talking about. You can only like literally taunt the enemy one time, but you have like a bunch of counters. So obviously if you get attacked or anything like that, you're still chilling. So here we're going to use skill 3, then we're going to skill 2. We're going to taunt the enemy again, and then we're going to use skill 2 on our Ichiji. Lower the crit resist, you know, so that way we can crit or something. Get the counter on the ult. Very nice. Get the counter again because he attacked her again. The crits are starting to go in crazy too. Here we're going to use, of course, full time and then use our ult. I'm not going to expect too much damage from Maki, obviously. We'll use skill 1 on our Yuji, and then we'll use the memory and the ults from our Miwa, and then we'll buff one more time with our Ichiji. It doesn't matter if he's in the last slot, because remember, he's just going to buff first before anybody does anything. The 397k, nothing crazy. Again, they were trying to really utilize the character's counter mechanics too, and the taunt, and they didn't want the character to be too busted. I get it, but at the same time, it kind of diminished the character's overall viability in a lot of content, and it just makes it so that there's no really real reason to use this character over other characters. All right, so we'll skill 3 here, and then we'll just ult with Yuji because we can. We'll taunt with our Miwa. No biggie, and then we'll use Unity and our ult, and if Yuji doesn't kill, it's fine. We'll literally just probably get back our ult for our Miwa straight away. As you can see, the counters are still going pretty crazy. And yeah, we have ult again, so we're just gonna ult here. We're gonna use this memory, use our skill 2, use our ult here, and then we'll skill 2 with Ichiji again. And yeah, I mean, the boss should be dead here. Like, there's no way the boss lives, right? Okay, the boss might live. Just might live. But yeah, that should basically be it. Like, no biggie. Again, character's nothing crazy. It's very nice to have the counter and the taunt, but the fact that you're only able to taunt the enemy like literally for one turn is just like, okay, well, it's like, wow, whatever, bro. Who cares? You know, you taunt one time and then you have like multiple counters, but if they're not attacking you, then what's the point? It should be taunt for one turn, not taunt one time or whatever, you know? Just ridiculous. But anyways, yeah, we're just gonna finish off the enemy because, yeah, pretty much over. Nothing crazy from Miwa, literally nothing crazy. Just pretty mediocre character, needing to be able to crit, needing to be able to counter, building up sword counts so you can do damage, and then even then after you build up all your sword counters, the damage is nothing special either. Anyways, let's see if we move on to the nuking team. Alright, y'all, so we're here on the nuking team. So obviously I already skipped all the, you know, useless clutter, basically the things that we already went through. So we're here on the final turn of the Shadow Garden from Megami. So of course we're going to do our skill 1. This is going to be the final debuff on the enemy. I'll just kind of show you real quick so you can kind of see it already. We have one here, we have one here, and then obviously we're going to get the one right now. So that's how you know we're on the final turn of it, right? Then we're going to do our second buff here. So our second buff is going, you're going to see right here that we're going to have one buff already active. So obviously when we use our Tailwind again, we're going to have the second buff active. And then we're obviously going to use Kamo's archery lesson now too. Now, of course, I could have used it the turn before, but I was a little bit worried that I might have done too much damage and then killed the boss, and then that would be a big issue. So we're going to buff like this and then use our skill 2. Then we're going to use our ult with our Inumaki with non-standard, and then of course we're going to use the memory, and then we're going to use the ult on our Miwa. Now our Miwa has 12 stacks, not quite the max amount, but it was kind of hard to manage properly the amount of sheath counts that I could get. Also, one thing I do want to note is earlier I kept saying sword counts. I'm used to the rough translation of the JP side, but yeah, sheathing counts is basically sword counts with the same shit. So anyways, we're going to use our ult. We're still going to have 12, so that's still going to be relatively high. And that's going to be it, right? We're going to use our last debuff on the enemy and might break them. Then we'll get the buff active too. And then after that, we'll have the ult from Inumaki, which will kill. But since we're in the combo ult, that means Miwa will be able to attack as well. So we'll be able to see the total damage output here, right? So let's see what we can do with her. I'll show you again all her buffs just so you're aware. And then the crit damage plus 50%. And then obviously she's going to get the Kamo's archery lesson and then the last tailwind and all that good stuff, right? So let's get right into it and see how much damage we can do. Okay, 5.5 mil or 5.6 mil on Inumaki. And then 2.5 mil on our Miwa. As you can see, for what it's worth, realistically her damage output isn't anything crazy. It takes a lot of ramp up, and obviously you have to time your counters, things like that. It's very time managing, and obviously turn management too. It's just a lot of things that are a little bit off about the character just for the damage output that's not really worth it. Despite having all those modifiers, 120% on top of the 1,200% modifier on the ult, it still doesn't quite do that much damage. As you can see, our Inumaki still outperformed her relatively easily without having to build up all those stacks or anything. He just basically had the debuffs only and his ult, and yeah, he just did more damage. It was just that simple for him. Meanwhile, you just have Miwa, very lackluster. This character really isn't that good. Unfortunately, she's going to probably be one of the worst characters in the entire game alongside the Red Maki. But yeah, anyways, that's going to be the Miwa showcase. So yeah, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I mean, I couldn't really enjoy it because, I mean, the character literally isn't that fun for me. Counters are nice, but it doesn't feel good if the character doesn't feel like they're doing any damage. But yeah, anyways, that's basically going to be the Miwa showcase. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.